Another major free agent signs as the Cardinals continue to sit idle and watch. And it got me thinking, does anyone really want Nolan Arenado? This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio. You can also follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I do want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. So here we are on the 30th of December, and the Cardinals have done almost nothing with their roster so far this offseason. It's been pretty darn boring, right? I'm right here with you. I get it. It's boring, and unfortunately, this is kind of what the Cardinals have set up for us this offseason. Years and years and years we've had where we've got to talk about free agents and trades that were going to benefit the Cardinals, and this year it all has come to a stop, and there ain't nothing going on. I mean, seriously, outside of not signing their impending free agents, they haven't made any additions to the roster through free agency. I wonder if there are any other teams who have done less than the Cardinals so far this year, but they haven't added anybody. Paul Goldschmidt has moved on, has joined the New York Yankees on that one-year deal. Frankly, I'm just glad he didn't sign in the division, to be honest with you, because I was very much nervous that the Brewers or even the Cubs might swoop them up. We haven't heard anything about guys like Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, or Andrew Kittredge signing anywhere yet, so their markets are still something to keep an eye on. We have had that threat of a Nolan Arenado trade, but that was snuffed out and has subsided yet again. I was talking with H-Town from Locked On Astros. If you've ever watched Locked On Astros, he's one of the hosts there, and I asked him what were his thoughts on Nolan Arenado, and then the deal got squashed and what he was feeling about that, and his just outside perspective, because we know how we feel as Cardinal fans and what we think of Nolan Arenado. Great guy. We love the intensity that he shows, and we still believe, I think a lot of us believe, that he's still got some good baseball left in him. But I wanted his outside thoughts on Nolan Arenado, and his response was that loves the glove still, one of the elite third basemen in the league with the glove, but is very much worried about the bat and the decline, and said if the money was right and Nolan wanted to come to Houston, that he would have been on board with that move, that it wasn't something that he would have been like, oh, no. The reason why I kind of hit him up about this, because when it said that he had turned it down, he had tweeted out, maybe dodged a bullet there. But, because I was like, well, do you not like him? Is there something about Nolan Arenado that you don't think would play well with Houston? And part of me thinks he was just kind of being polite by saying nice things about him. But it got me thinking, like, who really wants Nolan Arenado right now? Because this is not the Nolan Arenado from 2 years ago, who MVP caliber guy. This is the guy last year who, among qualified third basemen, finished 5th in batting average at 272, but 15th in home runs, 10th in RBIs, 10th in OBP, 11th in slugging, 16th in doubles, 13th in OPS. And I've said it before that if you took away the name, and I was saying the same stuff about Paul Goldschmidt, if you take away the name and you just look at the numbers, is that somebody you want on your team as your everyday starter at one of those corner positions? So when you hear all of how low he was in most of those categories, is this someone that you want as your third baseman next year, that you are willing to give up assets to acquire? Which is why the whole money thing is such a big deal, because if you're getting him super cheap, then you feel like, oh, well, you could live with that. And then the possibility that Nolan Arenado hits better next year, you're like, okay, maybe we'll see if he bounces back. But if he's flatlines and stays where he is, we're not getting killed because we're not, overpaying for him. And I'm not trying to, because I can hear how it sounds in my head. I'm not trying to make Nolan out to be the bad guy here. That's really not my goal. But the fact that the Cardinals found a team who wanted him, were willing to trade for him, they had come to that financial agreement, and whatever else the trade might have involved, whether it was a prospect or two, lower level, whatever it might have been. And, to have this, is it burden? Is it a problem? Like, what do we call this? Because I hate to use those phrases when describing what Nolan Arenado and his contract are, but to have that over with, wipe your hands of it. You're just kind of done with it. You feel good. Okay, we got it done. We're going to be okay. To get all of this off your plate and to just have it squashed and like not come to fruition because Nolan wasn't ready to accept the trade yet. That sucks. They were done. This was it. This was the big move that was going to clear out enough of the money that they, are trying to clear from the payroll, and they were ready to move on. And, then they could start tinkering with things. Maybe there's little pieces here and there that they could start messing with to bring onto the roster. But this reset is still on hold at the moment because of this. I'm as excited as you are about trying to figure out what this team's going to look like in 2025. And we can't do it until something gets done here or doesn't get done. If he has to come back, whatever happens. But the idea that they need to get it done, right? Both sides, they just got to get one done. Okay. It's time to move on. Gorman's going to go to third. You're going to have Wynn. You're going to have Donnie. You're going to have Contreras over at first base. The infield's going to be set. And then you can move your attention on to other things. But we're still stuck. We're about to turn the page to 2025, and we're stuck. And they also have to figure out if they need to move on to a plan B, whatever that may be. Some other way to slash some payroll. The Alex Bregman free agent market has a bit of an update. We'll talk about it a little bit later on, but maybe that will get the ball moving on another Nato trade at some point. But what is plan B? What if this doesn't work? What if Nolan doesn't go anywhere? If that happens, what else do you do? Obviously, you're thinking moving on from pitchers of some sort, right? Ryan Helsley appears to be sticking around. Not that his arbitration money is all that much savings, but the last I've seen is that, that you had teams like Arizona and you had Toronto that were kind of checking in, and they got the sense that the Cardinals weren't interested in dealing the NL reliever of the year. They're going to hang on to him. The Brewers trading Devin Williams to the Yankees eliminated one possible spot. The Phillies signed former Blue Jays closer Jordan Romano, so that's not a thing anymore. So I don't even know, what's left out there that's going to be looking for a closer of Ryan Helsley's capabilities. On the starting pitchers, Steven Matz, Eric Betty, those are some names that you might want to move on from. Fetty, not so much because he's expensive, but because you can get something decent in return. Matz would seriously be a salary dump. Like you're just trying to, move on from his, I think $11 million is where he's at right now. John Denton says that the Guardians have shown a keen interest in trading for Fetty or Matz per sources, and the Cards would be open to those deals. He also says don't rule out Kyle Gibson, who had his $11 million option declined in October, but could be a return candidate because of his ties to the area. The excellent work that he did with the younger pitchers last season. Denton continues saying that the Cardinals' ability to move Michaelis or Matz, who are owed $17.6 million and $12.5. So I was wrong at 11, 12.5 for Matz, could come down to how much salary they're willing to swallow. Carrying dead money is something the cost-conscious Cardinals hate doing. And he says, stay tuned on these potential deals. It's just a really odd and crappy position to be in right now, trying to slash payroll, not because you have to, not because you're broke, not because you can't afford it, but because you want to, because you're trying to move on from some of these veteran guys so that you say the younger players can see more action. But the guy who would make this whole situation a whole lot easier, he's got all the power in Nolan Arenado and has already thwarted one trade that we know of. You were hoping that maybe Wilson Contreras or Sonny Gray would be willing to move on, and they don't want to leave. They want to stay. Michaelis has shown no interest in leaving from what I've heard. Doesn't seem like he's going to go anywhere. So it's just making this whole process of moving on a lot more difficult. than we thought. It's kind of like breaking up with somebody, but you still live in the same house and you're stuck there until, the other person finds a new apartment or whatever ends up happening, but you guys are still stuck together, hanging out. You don't hate each other, but you don't want to be around each other much anymore either, Meanwhile, you got other teams around the league and in the division making all sorts of moves to improve their teams and their rosters and helping out their teams financially. The Diamondbacks just snagged arguably the top arm that was available on the free agent market in Corbin Burnes. We'll talk about him next and what that means for another former Cardinal. We'll get into that next on Locked On Cardinals. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Certainly has happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was actually still paying for. These little transactions, they add up after a while. They micro transactions, as we call them. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and it can even help you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. And one of the best features in the subscription tracker is being able to cancel those services that I wasn't using anymore. You save a ton by doing it. Plus, with their goals feature, you're able to automatically set aside money for your future. No more stressing about budgeting each and every month. They're there to help you out with it. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. Your feedback is always welcome and encouraged. We're going to have a couple of fan feedback episodes coming up here real soon because, the Cardinals aren't doing a whole lot, and it's a hell of a lot more fun chit-chatting with you and talking with you and answering questions and stuff and just having some normal conversation with Cardinals fans than it is sitting here going, all right, what are we going to do? What's going on? So other teams are making moves. The Arizona Diamondbacks being one of the teams that has done quite a lot so far this offseason. They made a monster signing this past weekend when they got former Cy Young winner Corbin Burnes on a 6-year, $210 million deal, which is the richest deal in franchise history. Reports are that there is an opt-out clause after 2026. We know Corbin Burns quite well in St. Louis due to his time in Milwaukee. He was awesome again last year, even though he was no longer in the NL Central. He was out in the AL East for the Orioles, went 15-9, 2.92 ERA in 32 starts for the Orioles. And what kind of caught people off guard about this particular deal was not so much the money or anything like that. Apparently, he did turn down more money from other places to sign with Arizona. But it was the fact that it was Arizona in the first place, the Diamondbacks, who ended up getting aggressive to get him, despite already having a pretty solid group of starting pitchers so far. Burns is going to join former Cardinal prospect Zach Gallen, former Cardinal Jordan Montgomery. Plus, you got Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez, Brandon Pfaadt, and Ryan Nelson in that rotation already. Now, in normal Cardinal years, when they are looking to wheel and deal and add some stuff, which they might at some point, but so far it hasn't happened. I would say, hey, maybe put a call into the Snakes about bringing Monty back to St. Louis. He had quite a nice run with the Cardinals when he was at Busch, so maybe he's somebody we can get for cheap. You don't have to give up a whole lot, but this is not the year to do such things. But not a bad crop of rotation arms that they got in the desert over there. The team has already let Christian Walker go. Jack Peterson, and Randall Grichuk, another former Cardinal, leave via free agency. He had a really good year last year, so he's somebody that might be a nice bench bat for a team. I don't know if the Cardinals will be interested in it, but throwing it out there. Walker has gone to Houston after the Arenado deal fell through. They moved on quite quickly and snagged up Christian Walker in free agency. The Diamondbacks made a trade with the Guardians to get all-star first baseman Josh Naylor. to replace Christian Walker. Peterson is going to the Rangers. And as I mentioned, Grichuk, as far as I've seen, he's still a free agent out there. But you just see the wheels turning in Arizona, who have not always been very big spenders. Not always. Sometimes they fork over some money here and there, but more recently they hadn't been. But they continue to make deals and spend money despite some uncertainty with what's going on in their regional sports network as well. Very similar to the Cardinals, who have that uncertainty going on. Our guy Thomas Covain from RedbirdBrands.com put out a nice article about it recently, about how the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals are in similar situations. Yet, you've got the Cardinals just slashing and going in this different direction, while the Diamondbacks are adding and moving forward and trying to compete for a World Series, which, that they're going this way, and the Cardinals appear to be heading for a non-competitive year in St. Louis. I mean, it feels like it's going to be floating right around the 500 mark once again. Perhaps there'll be some surprises, maybe some of these guys like Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman, and maybe Mason Wynn takes that next step. Contreras can stay healthy and can hit the hell out of the ball as a first baseman. There are some reasons to think that the Cardinals might be okay, but there's nothing that makes you go, boom, playoff team. There they are. So, and it's kind of a bummer to see a team that's in the similar situation doing things differently. And let's just be honest, being more fun, more active, going for it instead of scaling back things. What does this Corbin Burns deal mean for another former Cardinal in starting pitcher Jack Flaherty, who, in my opinion, seems to have been kind of like a forgotten man in free agency this year? I realize he doesn't have the pedigree of Corbin Burns or Max Fried or Blake Snell, but it has seemed oddly quiet considering how well he did last year for the Tigers and then helping the Dodgers win the World Series. Now, rumors out there right now are that Jack could ink a deal with the San Francisco Giants. That's a team that's been brought up who were in contention for Corbin Burns. Actually, some people thought they were the favorites to get Burns, but they did not. He's not going to be there. He is going to be in Arizona. The Giants also lost Blake Snell to the Dodgers, which probably didn't sit so well with them. So why not take a Dodger and bring him over to San Francisco, bring him to the Bay, make him a Giant? I saw one prediction for Jack Flaherty, 5 years and $100 million. I don't think that's that bad of a deal. And I know Jack has had the injury history when he was with the Cardinals, but the last couple seasons, pretty darn healthy. Just turned 29 in October, went 13-7 last year with a 3.17 ERA combined in Detroit and LA. Other than San Francisco, I've seen the Angels mentioned as a place that he could land. Jack's a West Coast guy for years and years and years. When he was with the Cardinals, we constantly talked about how, he's just going to want to go to the West Coast one day. He's going to be a Dodger one day, which ended up coming to fruition. But, the Angels, if they decide they want to pay, the most, I could see Jack taking a deal with LA and stay in California. After losing Burns, with the Orioles have any interest in Jack again, despite things not going so well? Pretty bumpy road with Baltimore after the Cardinals traded him there in 2023. Ended up, losing his spot in the rotation and was a non-factor for them down the stretch. But he looked like a different guy last year. I don't have the analytics or what happened in front of me, but he just looked different. He looked more aggressive. He looked more focused. I don't know what changed about Jack Flaherty, but it was good. It was good. Like, again, normal Cardinal year. If we're talking about adding guys, Jack Flaherty's somebody I'm thinking about at 5 years and $100 million. That is not bad considering he's 29 years old and seems to be healthy and has figured some things out. Another name that has been mentioned, or should I say hasn't been mentioned all that much, Japanese star Roki Sasaki, who is still coming over to the States. Yes, it is still happening. We're still in that big window. The Dodgers reportedly had an in-person meeting with him, making that the sixth team, I believe, to do an in-person meeting. Mets, Yankees, Cubs, Rangers, and Giants are the other ones that have been confirmed so far. Nothing really since the winter meetings on the Cardinals' interest in him. And I remember when they asked Mo about it, they're like, so what's your plan? He's like, well, we're going to make our pitch. We'll try. And yeah, didn't seem all too optimistic about that. So I'm not going to hold my breath if Sasaki has any interest in coming to the Midwest or to the St. Louis Cardinals. But there are some names out there. On the market, some former Cardinals that, Flaherty, Gibson, Lance Lynn, we talked about those. Jose Quintana is a guy that I would love to see in a Cardinal uniform again. I thought he was outstanding. Again, I would rather have a Jose Quintana than Miles Michaelis at this point in our lives. Max Scherzer is still out there. Justin Verlander, Andrew Heaney, Charlie Morton, Michael Lorenzen. These are some of the other names that are still available as this market kind of trickles down now that the Corbin Burns signing has happened. There's still trade rumors surrounding the Mariners, Luis Castillo, the Twins, Pablo Lopez, the Padres, Dylan Cease, a guy that I would love to see in a Cardinal uniform at some point. There's still talk about Eric Fetty. I'm still wondering if someone is going to make an effort to take advantage of the fact that Eric Fetty, coming off a very strong year with the White Sox, and I know that he didn't do quite as well as we wanted him to do after the trade, after he got to St. Louis, but after he settled in, I feel like he was fine. And that was how I felt about the trade at the time. I was like, he's fine. He's nothing special. But what makes him a little bit special is what you get from him for the price, making $7.5 million this year. That's a bargain for the skill set that Eric Fetty offers. So, I wonder if people will have interest in that. Maybe teams didn't believe in the season last year as much as we thought that his turnaround was kind of, maybe it wasn't as big a deal as we thought. But I don't know. That's kind of where we're at with the starting pitching. I want to jump over to the offensive side of things. We'll do that next on Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, you can find Locked On MLB with our special baseball guru, Sully, hosting it, giving you a daily blend of humor in baseball, keeping you updated on all the teams during this offseason, including our Cardinals. You can find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So the big names that are still out there on the free agent market, first baseman Pete Alonso still does not have a home. Third baseman Alec Bregman still does not have a home. Outfield-wise, Anthony Santander, still a free agent as well. And according to reports, this is what I hit on a little bit earlier about Alex Bregman, is that the Detroit Tigers are, from reports, all in. They're all in on trying to bring Bregman to Detroit. They just got Gleyber Torres, formerly of the Yankees, on a one-year deal worth $15 million. From what I've read, the plan is to move Colt Keith to first base. He was playing second base last year. They'll have Torres at second, a platoon of Trey Sweeney and Javi Baez at shortstop, which would leave third baseman open for Bregman. Now, if that falls through, would Detroit put in an offer to try to get Nolan Arenado from the Cardinals? Something to keep an eye on, but I don't know, man. Just judging off of the way things are going, it doesn't. I cannot picture Nolan Arenado waiving the no trade clause to go to the Motor City. It just doesn't seem like that is the place that he would want to be. It seems like he wants to go West Coast. It seems like, obviously he wants to go on a winning team. Detroit, surprise season last year, did very, very well. Rode the arm of AL Cy Young Award winner Tarek Skubal, but I don't know. I don't know if that's something that he'd be interested in. It just doesn't seem like the fit for me. The more I looked into this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this Javi Baez contract. Oh my gosh, how bad is that? How bad is that? For the team and their payroll right now, the dude he's going to get $25 million this year, 24 and 24 the next 2 years. So we're talking $75 million for the next 3 years, and he might not even be a starter, just like a platoon player. I mean, who's trading for that guy? Who's trading for that contract? This is the crap that the Cardinals are trying to avoid. I mean, all teams are. Nobody wants a bummer contract like that, but it's why the Cardinals want to become elite at developing their own guys. The free agent crapshoot, it's just too volatile. It just is. And if you are always going to get outbid for the sure thing type of guys by the bigger markets, and you're never going to try to compete with them and try to outbid them, and then you're left with the next tier down of guys who are the not so sure things more often than not. That leads to bad contracts. They can handcuff you. Another thing I wonder about is what they plan to do with Spencer Torkelson. Now, he was the number 1 overall pick just a couple of years ago. Are they tapping out on him already? 31 bombs, 94 ribbies in 2023 at the major league level. Last year, he fizzled out. Had a tough year. I drafted him in fantasy. He was terrible. He was terrible. Had to spend some time in the minors this year. Still 25 years old, which reminds me a lot of kind of the Nolan Gorman situation. Now, Gorman, not the number 1 overall pick, but obviously a high pick. And the strikeout numbers are up. He's had to do some time in the minor leagues after finding some success in the majors. Torkelson's under control for 3 more years. Obviously has talent, or else he would not have been selected. Number 1 overall in the country in 2020. I'm curious what it would take to pry him away these days as an investment in something. This Contreras thing at first base, just because that's the plan now doesn't mean it has to be later. What if Contreras changes his mind later on? Is like, you know what? I will get traded. I will. Like, wouldn't it be nice to have a first base prospect like a Spencer Torkelson just sitting there DHing or playing some first base? That would be nice. As far as Alonso goes, I still think he could end up back with the Mets. It just kind of makes a lot of sense to me, but I guess the Giants now have him on the radar as well. Now, if the Giants get, Alonso, they already signed Willie Adames and they got Jack Flaherty. I mean, would that be so bad? I feel like that's a home run for the Giants right there, but Alonso is running out of options of places to go. Yankees, Diamondbacks, Astros, Guardians, Nationals, they've all added first baseman. Josh Bell reportedly going back to Washington. They got Nathaniel Lowe. But what does Alonso want? What would it take to get him to come back? The last thing I read, which was a couple of days ago, though, was that they were pretty far apart. But if I'm Pete Alonso, I am drooling over hitting behind Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor in 2025. I mean, woo, that would be fun. The Cubs, keeping an eye on people in the division, also made a deal on Sunday. They traded with the Marlins for utility man Vidal Brujan in exchange for Matt Mervis and cash. Brujan will be 27 in February. Switch hitter, utility guy, has played all over the diamond. Shortstop, second, third, center, right, left. That was all just last year. Made a brief appearance at first base in one game. He even pitched a couple of times. He is not a hitter, not much of a hitter whatsoever, but offers that bench flexibility, which, as we know in St. Louis, is always quite nice when you got some guys who can just pretty much play anywhere you need to put them at. That's what makes Brendan Donovan such a special person on this roster. Not only is he a pretty good hitter, much better hitter than Vidal Brujan, but obviously he can play a number of different positions as well, which is why we love him. So that's kind of the updates of what's going on with the Cardinals and around Major League Baseball. Obviously, if there's any more new news, we will keep you updated. We'll keep you posted as soon as things break. But appreciate you making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube, help our channel and our love for the Cardinals grow. If you got any comments you want to throw to us, where you have any questions about things that are going on, or just maybe some suggestions for John Mozeliak, some things just to make this offseason a little more interesting, put it in the comments down below or hit us up on Twitter X, and that way we can talk about it in a future episode. You guys are the best fans of baseball for a reason. We will see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.